You know, those moments, like the ones where you said something a bit awkward, maybe didn't handle something perfectly, and suddenly your brain just plays it back on
Right.
repeat.
Full volume.
Exactly. Or you've got something big coming up, like a presentation, and instead of feeling prepared, your inner voice is just, well, it's flooding you with doubt. That internal noise can feel so loud,
It
overwhelming.
really can, and it just
Yeah,
drains you.
yeah, totally.
It's pretty much a universal thing, though, that internal monologue. And look, sometimes it's super helpful, right? Planning things, solving problems.
Right.
But it definitely has this other side where it can turn negative.
Yeah.
And that's what the source material we're digging into today calls chatter.
Chatter. You know, that's such a perfect word for it.
Isn't it?
And that's exactly what this deep dive is focused on. We're pulling insights straight from source material that summarizes Ethan Kross's work in his book, also called Chatter. It's a real look at that noisy inner voice and, maybe more importantly, how we can start to manage it.
Yeah, our goal here, looking at this source, is to really pull out the key lessons and give you the practical tools it talks about. Think of it like, well, like a shortcut to understanding how to quiet that noise and actually make your inner voice work for you, not against you.
And this is definitely for you, the listener. If you're looking to grasp these ideas quickly, find those aha moments, without getting totally bogged down.
Because, let's face it, as the source points out, if you've ever felt trapped by your own thoughts, well, this is directly relevant.
And the good news here, which I really liked, is that the strategies aren't about somehow magically silencing your mind. That feels impossible.
Right. It's not about silence.
Instead, the source lays out 7 pretty powerful strategies that go beyond just like think positive. They're about actually harnessing that inner voice, directing it.
And what's interesting is how the source frames it. It's not presented as some kind of flaw you need to fix. It's more like a skill you can build learning to guide that internal conversation.
Okay, let's get into it then. Let's unpack this source material and really talk through these 7 lessons it offers.
Let's do it. So the very first lesson the source highlights is pretty fundamental. It's about recognizing the dual nature of your inner voice.
Right. It's not just one thing. It can be like a coach
Mm,
or a critic.
exactly. That's the distinction. Sometimes it's helpful, strategizing, giving you little pep talks before something tough. That's the coach.
Hmm.
But other times it gets stuck in those negative loops, just repeating critical stuff. That's the critic, and that's where the chatter really comes in. The source says, understanding this difference is the first big step. And it's totally normal, by the way. Everyone has both.
Yeah, the source gives that example of prepping for a job interview, which is so relatable. Your inner voice could be coaching you like, okay, remember your strengths, think through potential questions.
Right, the helpful stuff.
Or it flips, and suddenly it's the critic just replaying past flubs, whispering things like, you're going to mess this up, or someone else is way better qualified.
And the main action step the source points to here is simply noticing which voice is talking. Is this actually helping me prepare, or is it just noise?
Okay.
And once you spot the critic, the idea is to consciously try and replace that negative talk with something more constructive, like a question.
So instead of just letting, I'm going to bomb this interview loop in your head,
Yeah.
you'd actively switch gears to something like, okay, what's one more thing I can do to feel better prepared? Is that the idea? Shifting the focus.
Exactly. You've got it.
Yeah.
Moving from just stating the problem or the fear to thinking about the next step, from what's wrong to what now.
Got it.
And that naturally leads into the second lesson from the source, learning how to break free from overthinking.
Ah, yes. Overthinking. This is where chatter really lives for a lot of people, I think. The source basically defines it as that constant negative inner talk that just, it grabs all your focus, sucks your energy.
Yeah, and it makes tiny problems feel huge.
Totally. Monumental.
And the source makes a clear distinction. Overthinking isn't the same as productive problem solving. It's usually just spinning your wheels, replaying the same negative stuff, which just amps up the bad feelings without getting you anywhere near a solution.
Right.
It uses the example of someone just going over and over an argument they had. They don't feel better. They don't find a way forward. They just feel stuck
Yeah.
and more upset.
So awareness again. Noticing when you're caught in that loop. That's key, the source says.
Crucial.
And then it gives some pretty simple, like immediate ways to break the cycle.
Right, because that overthinking loop often traps you inside your own head.
Mm.
So the source suggests ways to kind of externalize.
Mm.
Simple distractions can work, tidying something up, going for a quick walk, anything that shifts your focus outward.
Oh,
Or, and this is a powerful one, actually writing your thoughts down.
yeah. Getting them out. onto paper or, typing them out.
Exactly. It physically gets the chatter out of your head. The source explains that this helps break that mental loop and just lightens the load a bit.
It gives you a sense of release, maybe, interrupts the spiral.
Precisely. And gives you back a little bit of control over your thoughts.
Okay, that makes sense. Let's move to lesson number 3 then. This one's about getting clarity by zooming out.
Yeah, this is a big one. Our emotions can be so intense.
Hmm.
And when we're right in the middle of them, problems can feel absolutely massive, all-consuming.
Mm-hmm.
So the source really argues that stepping back, getting some perspective, is vital for clear thinking when you're swamped by chatter.
It gives some great examples too, like failing an exam. In that moment, it can feel like the absolute end of the world academically.
Yeah, it feels huge.
But zooming out means asking, okay, honestly, is this going to matter in a year or 5 years? And you realize probably it's a setback, sure, but just a small bump in the grand scheme of things.
Or another example it gives, losing a job. The immediate feeling might be sheer panic, suffocating worry. But zooming out lets you start to see it differently. Maybe not as a dead end, but possibly. Well, an unexpected turn, maybe even leading to something better you wouldn't have looked for otherwise. That shift in perspective, that's where hope and clearer thinking can creep back in.
So it's not just saying think bigger picture in a vague way. The source offers actual techniques for doing this, zooming out.
Right. Concrete things like mentally traveling in time, imagining your future self, looking back at this exact moment. How would future you see it?
Oh, okay.
We're asking yourself that classic question. What advice would I give my best friend if they were going through this?
Yeah, that's a good one. Removes you from it a bit.
It does. It even suggests journaling, but writing as your future self, reflecting on how you navigated this challenge. These things actively create that bit of psychological space you need to get past the immediate emotional hit and see things more clearly.
Which actually connects nicely to lesson number 4. And this one, well, might sound a bit odd at first. Learn to talk to yourself like a friend.
Yeah, this one digs into what the source calls self-distancing. It's about changing the viewpoint you're using when you think about yourself in a tough spot. Often that means using non-first-person language.
So using your own name or saying you.
Exactly, instead of I. The source explains that doing this creates a kind of emotional buffer. It lets you approach the situation more objectively, almost like you were advising someone else you care about.
The source actually mentions LeBron James doing this sometimes, using the third person in high-pressure moments.
It does, and it clarifies, it's not about ego or arrogance. It's a technique to get that mental distance needed for clearer thinking when things are intense.
So it's like a little linguistic trick that changes how you process things.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
Simple shift with a potentially big impact. So the actionable step is just practicing it. Instead of getting stuck in I can't handle this, trying out, okay, your name, what's the best way forward here, or how can you deal with this?
And the source suggests really practicing it, right? Maybe even saying it out loud, perhaps in a mirror. Using that kind, supportive, problem-solving tone you'd use with a mate.
Absolutely. It's about consciously reframing that inner talk, shifting it away from harsh judgment towards, compassionate coaching.
Transforming the critic into a coach, basically.
That's a great way to put it.
Okay, lesson 5 takes a bit of a turn. It shifts the focus outward. Choose the right people for support.
Yeah, this point from the source is really important. Because, sharing problems definitely helps. We all know that. But the source strongly makes the case that not all sharing, or maybe not all kinds of support, are actually helpful when it comes to chatter.
Yeah.
Some can make it worse.
Right. It talks about something called co-rumination.
Exactly that, co-rumination. That's when, say, 2 people get together and just vent endlessly about a problem. They get stuck rehashing all the negative details, going round and round, without really moving towards processing it or finding solutions.
Okay, I can picture that.
The source gives an example of friends who just constantly talk about a breakup. And instead of helping, that constant dwelling just digs the trench of sadness deeper, making it harder for anyone to actually move forward.
So connection is good, but the type of support really matters. Quality over just venting quantity.
Precisely. The advice is to look for people who do listen, of course, but who also help you maybe see things from a different angle or brainstorm potential next steps. It's not about bottling things up, but guiding the conversation toward understanding and action, not just getting stuck in the mire together.
So the practical advice here is be mindful. Maybe have just a couple of trusted people give that kind of constructive support.
Yeah, choose wisely And also, when you're the one supporting someone, try to gently steer things forward. Maybe ask something like, okay, that sounds really tough. What's maybe one small step you could take today?
Making it a launch pad, not just a loop.
Exactly, a launch pad. I like that.
Okay, lesson 6 brings us back inside, but in a different way. It's about our physical surroundings. Use your environment to calm your mind.
This is fascinating, how much our physical space can influence our inner world. The source points out that, cluttered, chaotic environments can actually seem to mirror or even amplify mental noise.
Right. Makes sense.
Whereas calmer environments, especially being out in nature, can help quiet that internal chatter.
It mentions studies that back this up, doesn't it? Like one where walking in a park actually reduced negative thought loops compared to walking down a busy street.
It does.
Mm.
So the physical space you're in directly affects how well you can manage those internal distractions. Your environment isn't passive. It's actually a tool you can use.
So what are the actionable things here? What can you do?
Well, simple, tangible stuff. Spending time in nature, even if it's just a local park or a bit of green space, that could have a real calming effect. Tidying up your workspace or home space, making it feel more orderly, can reduce that feeling of cognitive overload.
Okay.
Another suggestion is keeping meaningful things nearby. Maybe a photo that makes you smile, a quote that inspires you, an object tied to a good memory.
Little anchors.
Yeah, exactly. Little anchors. The source even suggests simple routines, like starting or ending your day with a short walk outside, or just tidying one small area. It sets a calmer tone, externally and internally.
Simple changes, big potential impact.
That's the idea. Small external shifts influencing the internal state.
All right, and finally, lesson number 7. This brings us back to our mental strategies. Use mental tools to reframe challenges.
Yeah, this one circles back to some things we touched on, like the mental time travel, but it really zeroes in on the power of consciously reframing difficult situations, seeing them not just as problems or threats, but as, well, opportunities, chances for learning and growth.
It's that cognitive shift again. The source mentions athletes, how they manage pregame nerves. Instead of framing that feeling as, oh no, I'm so nervous, this is bad.
Right, the anxiety frame.
They're coached to reframe it as excitement or readiness. Like, okay, I'm feeling energized, I'm ready for this opportunity.
That's the core idea right there. Shifting how you appraise the challenge. Is it a threat you just have to survive? Or is it an opportunity you can actually meet and learn from? So instead of thinking, ugh, I'm terrible at this, you consciously switch to, okay, this is a chance for me to get better, to learn something.
And the actionable steps build on that.
They do. Asking yourself things like, how am I likely to see this particular challenge a month from now? Actively looking for the upside. What's one positive thing I can actually take away from this hard situation? The source even suggests a daily practice. At the end of the day, just jot down one thing you learned or gained from any challenges you faced.
So these are like deliberate mental exercises.
Exactly. They build resilience over time and empower you to face difficulties more proactively instead of just feeling swamped by them.
Okay. So pulling all these 7 lessons together, what the source material on Chatter really seems to be saying is that our inner voice, even when it gets noisy and critical, isn't this uncontrollable force that's just working against us.
Right, that internal conversation is something we can influence. We have tools.
By using these, distinct practical strategies, noticing the coach versus critic, stopping the overthinking loops, zooming out for perspective, talking to yourself kindly, using that self-distancing, choosing support wisely, using your environment, reframing challenges, you start to gain some control back.
And the source is clear. You don't need to become an expert in all 7 overnight. Just picking 1 or 2 that feel doable, that resonate with you, and practicing them. That can start making a real difference.
It's about slowly shifting that internal noise away from being just a source of stress and anxiety and turning it into something more constructive, clearer, maybe even eventually a more positive internal dialogue.
And the potential results the source points to are pretty significant.
Right.
A calmer mind, more clarity, feeling more confident, basically turning that inner voice from your biggest critic into, hopefully, your biggest ally.
Which leaves us with a final thought for you, our listener, to maybe mull over. Thinking about that power of reframing that the source talks so much about. How might viewing your next challenge, doesn't matter how small, viewing it purely as an opportunity for growth, how might that fundamentally change your experience of it?
That's a powerful question to sit with.
Absolutely. Well, this has been a really insightful deep dive.
It really has. Lots to think about.